They thought they covered their tracks, that if they smiled enough, played the concerned friend role well enough, stayed just close enough to you, no one would ever believe the truth. But here we are. The mask has slipped. The whispers have turned to thunder. And the cat. Oh. The cat is not just out of the budget standing in the middle of the room, growling with receipts. What do you do when the very people who called you family were the architects of your deepest wounds? How do you heal when the ones you trusted the most were running an underground campaign to destroy you? This wasn't accidental. This was warfare disguised as bonding. They didn't just want you hurt, they needed you, ruined, because your glow terrified them. Your purpose irritated the demons they never confronted. And your rise? It was a mirror they couldn't stand to look into. You reminded them of what they gave up on, what they could never become, what they never had the discipline to pursue. That's why they didn't just walk away. They built a system of sabotage around your light and dared to do it in the name of love. End of 4. But here's the shift: truth has a timeline, and it's finally caught up with them. The lights are on, and what once hid in shadows is now center stage. Their roles exposed, their scripts unraveled, their intentions broadcast in divine surround sound. And you're not broken. You're awake. Before we dive into the full unveiling, I want you to do something bold. Drop 777 in the comments if you've ever been ambushed by betrayal wearing a friendly face, or if you've ever walked into a room and felt your soul shrink under the weight of unspoken jealousy. That number tells me you're not alone in this awakening. It tells the algorithm that more chosen ones are rising. And to every single one of you who's supported this movement, especially those of you pouring into this mission through super thanks, I feel your heart. I honor your strength, and I'm so grateful. You're not just helping a video grow, you're helping voices. Remember, they matter. Because what's coming next, it's not just information, it's illumination. And I promise, you've never looked at them like this before. Keep watching. Because now we peel back the final layer. The show they scripted is over. Your testimony is just beginning. Are you ready to see how deep this betrayal really went? Let's go. God's chosen ones. The cat's out of the bag on how far this group family went to cause pain for you. Number 1. When you dig a grave for the chosen, make it deep, because the universe might just bury you in it. They didn't just dig, they measured, calculated, stood over the edge of the pit with quiet satisfaction, believing your fall was guaranteed. But what they didn't calculate was the law of reversal, where the trap they set for you becomes their own undoing. Proverbs 26, 27 waren's. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. They didn't know that ancient law still speaks. But ask yourself this: why would people plot so deeply against someone they claim to love? What is it about your very presence that forced them to build alliances behind your back? Their fear was never about what you lacked. It was about what you carried. You didn't remind them of your weakness. You reminded them of what they never had the courage to become. They wanted a silenced version of you, a filtered, diluted, tame version. The kind of version that doesn't disturb fake peace. That's why they spoke curses wrapped in prayer circles. Why they used spiritual language to smuggle emotional control. But they didn't just mess with you, they tampered with holy fire. You were marked long before they tried to muffle you. Jeremiah 5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. before you were born. I set you apart. There's a reason their efforts haven't worked. Your pain wasn't wasted. It was engineered. Have you noticed how betrayal became your compass? How exile became the blueprint for your rise? You were cast out like David in the wilderness, like Elijah in the cave, like Esther in silence before the throne. But isolation for the chosen isn't punishment, it's consecration. Let's go deeper. What kind of war were they waging against you without you even knowing? How many meetings did they hold to manage the image of your failure? What does it say about your power that they needed a whole collective to try and bury it? The answer lies not in who you are, but in who sent you. They weren't just fighting you, they were provoking the one who called you. Remember the story of Elisha in 2 Kings 6. When an entire army surrounded him and his servant in the night, the servant panicked. But Elisha, calm and composed, prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." And suddenly the hills were filled with horses and chariots of fire. That's what they didn't see around you, divine reinforcements. They surrounded you, but heaven surrounded them. Pope Shenouda III, the late Coptic patriarch and theologian, once said, "If God is not in the storm, you will drown. But if he is in the fire will serve you." What was meant to consume you became your training ground. What was sent to silence you gave birth to your roar. Like Maya, a young community organizer in Detroit whose closest friends turned against her the moment she launched her own foundation. They said she changed, grew cold, became too much. But the truth was, she outgrew their boxes. The same ones who ignored her calls are now asking her to speak at their events. She didn't just rise, she rose without their permission. Have you realized yet that your survival was never just survival? It was evidence that every scar they tried to write off has now become a scroll declaring your assignment. And look to the natural world. A glacier doesn't announce itself. It forms over years of invisible pressure, moving with unstoppable force. That's what you are. Silent strength that shapes landscapes. They mistook your pause for absence, but now you're advancing. You don't have to lift a finger. You never did. That's what they don't understand. You were never sent to wrestle with shadows. They were the ones who chose to fight against light. And now, the storm has arrived. But you are the storm. You've become what they feared most, a reckoning wrapped in radiance. What force can they summon now that can undo what has already been divinely aligned? What lie can they tell loud enough to drown out a soul finally in sync with heaven's timing? The answer is none. Because the shift in the atmosphere they're now trembling under, it's the universe correcting its course. That pressure in their chest, that's not coincidence. That's justice. Isaiah 54:17 reminds us, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." You never had to fight them back. The word already did. They didn't expect the silence they imposed on you to be the very place where God whispered your strategy. They didn't know you were incubating fire. You were never alone. When the chosen ones walk, heaven dispatches forces. When you're lied on, angels lean forward. When you're stripped of community, the Spirit begins constructing something they can't cancel. That's why the battle turned, not because you retaliated, but because heaven responded. Psalm 34:7 says, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them." No, but have you fully realized the price of your light yet? Have you noticed how they didn't just disagree with you, they tried to erase you? That's not personal, that's prophetic. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to expose what was false by simply existing. You didn't provoke var. You revealed one. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian who resisted the Nazis, once said, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. That's why your voice returns with vengeance. You're no longer shrinking to soothe fragile egos. You're no longer apologizing for being unmoved by manipulation. You're no longer dimming to comfort the uncommitted." There's a woman named Samira, a quiet but brilliant systems architect in London. For years, she was excluded from promotions, gaslighted in meetings, and mocked in private chats. But she stayed still, studied their systems, and wrote her own. Now, the very company that denied her is trying to partner with the firm she built from scratch. They didn't see her strategy until it was too late. Like you. She didn't shout. She executed. And yes, the isolation stung. The silence was brutal, but it was surgical. You were pulled apart so you could be rebuilt correctly. Could you have heard your real voice in the middle of their noise? Would you have risen this way if they hadn't tried to bury you first? You thought you were being left behind, but heaven was simply pulling you ahead. Romans 8:28 affirme. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. That's what's happening now. Alignment, exposure, power returned to the rightful vessel. Look at the lioness in the wild. She doesn't chase mice. She conserves her roar for moments that matter. You are that lioness. They mistook your silence for defeat, but it was discipline. Now they're being devoured by the truth they buried. Why are they scrambling to explain your rise? Why are the very ones who mocked you suddenly obsessed with your every move? It's not curiosity, it's consequence. You became the headline they can't spin. Their lies collapsed, not because you shouted louder, but because the vibration of truth has finally outrun their illusion. The cat isn't just out of the badgets roaring through their empire of deceit like a wildfire in dry timber. To the ones who plotted your end, you lost the moment heaven remembered who it sent. And to you, the one reading this, the one still rising with battle scars and brilliance, you are not too late. You are not too broken. You are exactly on time. Now walk like the earth was told to make room for your feet. Number 2. The great accounting. The universe never misses a move. They moved in shadows, thinking the light was blind, whispered lies like sacred oaths, wrote your downfall into scripts they handed each other like treasured secrets. They thought you were too naive to notice, too kind to confront. But what they didn't realize is that the universe never misses a signature, and now the audit has begun. Have you ever wondered how some people seem to rehearse their betrayal before you even trust them? Why their movements always felt calculated, like they were playing a game you never agreed to join? That's because they weren't just reacting, they were orchestrating. In their minds, it was chess. In reality, it was surveillance. And the very moves they thought would destroy you became their confessions. Every grin they wore like a mask. Every innocent text laced with hidden intention. Every secret meeting they hoped no one would ever discover. It's all been documented, but not in a courtroom. In the eternal database of divine justice. Psalm 33:13, -15 says, "From heaven the Lord looks down and sees all mankind. From his dwelling place he watches all who live on earth. He who forms the hearts of all, who considers everything they do." This isn't karma dressed in pop culture. This is cosmic accounting. And it's exact. No error, no emotion, just precision. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual theft. They hijacked your light to power their image. They fabricated a weaker version of you to justify their control. Have you ever sensed that they needed you smaller so they could feel big, that your presence exposed a bankruptcy in their soul. It reminds me of Ananias and Sapphira in Acts 5. They lied not just to people, but to the Holy Spirit. They thought their deception was clever, harmless, strategic. But Peter said to them, "You have not lied just to human beings, but to God." And judgment fell immediately. The universe doesn't deal in delay, it deals in divine alignment. When the scales are off, they will be reset. And for them, the scales are tipping fast. Look now. Can you see it? The unraveling, the cracks in their carefully curated world, the nervous glances, the broken alliances, the gossip machines short-circuiting because the truth they mocked has outlived their lies. Ecclesiastes 12:14 confirms it. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing. Whether it is good or evil, they didn't plan for the evidence to speak, but it's speaking now. Dr. Edith Eva Eger, Holocaust survivor and world-renowned trauma psychologist, once said, "We cannot heal what we do not acknowledge." And sometimes, the truth waits for the silence to be loud enough. That's what's happening now. Their silence used to be your torment, but now, it's their trial. They mocked your stillness, but your stillness was their exposure. Then there's Caleb, a logistics coordinator in Nairobi who was systematically blocked from advancement by colleagues who resented his integrity. They forged reports, twisted emails, spread rumors to HR, but he didn't retaliate. He documented, and when the company faced a massive internal audit, his quiet records dismantled an entire corrupt system. Now, he's not just promoted, he's overseeing the team that once tried to bury him. You've been under the radar, but not under divine neglect. Do you realize how meticulously heaven has been logging your journey? Do you understand that the very injustice that wounded you has become the fuel behind your rise? Like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface, the pressure has been building. Now, the shift is here, and no fortress of deceit can withstand a quake written in heaven's timetable. They thought no one saw, but the heavens blinked not once. Every staged concern, every strategic smile, every moment they drank your tears like wine, they were all recorded. Divine surveillance doesn't miss a moment. Every whisper behind your back was echoed in eternity. Every time they celebrated your breakdown, thinking your collapse was confirmation of their power. It was already noted. Why did they feel so safe playing with what was sacred? How could they believe the divine would stay silent forever? The answer is pride unexamined, unrepentant, and loud. But now, the roar belongs to your healing, and their silence is their trial. To you, the chosen one of this was never about luck. This was about justice deferred, not denied. You didn't just make it through. You outlasted what was designed to consume you. Psalm 18:27 says, "You save the humble but bring low those whose eyes are haughty." They mistook your humility for weakness. Not knowing it was your covering, they wore your pain like a trophy, curated your sorrow like it was part of their brand. They gathered stories soaked in your blood and told them with pride. How could someone so entertained by your wounds think there'd be no cost? But healing has its own frequency, and your restoration is now louder than their narrative. It reminds me of Haman, the adversary of Mordecai and Esther. He built a gallows for the one he despised, only to be sentenced to it himself. Esther 7:10 records it clearly. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. What they set up for your humiliation has now become the stage for their fall. Brian Stevenson, renowned civil rights lawyer, and founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, once said, "You can't understand most of the important things from a distance. You have to get close." And that's what the universe has done. It's closed in, not with violence, but with truth. It got close enough to smell the rot behind the charm, close enough to collapse the fantasy under its own weight. There's a man named Victor, a quiet high school principal in São Paulo. For years, a group of board members used his kindness against him, spread rumors, denied funding, even blamed him for misconduct he never committed. But he stayed the course, kept records, kept praying. One day, an anonymous tip launched an investigation. Not only was he cleared, his accusers were exposed in full detail. Today, he's been appointed to lead regional reform in education. They thought they'd buried him beneath bureaucracy, but the truth unearthed him. You see, the foundation they built wasn't rocket, was sand. Matthew 7:26 warns, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand." And now, their empire is collapsing. No scaffolding of deceit can hold up once divine winds start blowing. Have you ever wondered why the collapse is quiet at first? Why the reckoning feels almost poetic? Because the universe doesn't need spectacle to execute justice, the same way they whispered their betrayals. The correction now echoes back in silence until it crashes so loud it cracks illusions into ash. What you're witnessing is balance restored, not petty revenge, not bitterness, but cosmic alignment. The divine didn't just clear your name, it elevated your voice. You were the target. Now you're the testimony. You are the headline written in fire. And their desperation? It's not remorse, it's terror. Terror that the truth will no longer be filtered through your grace. That the light they used to stand beside to appear whole is no longer accessible without your glow. Their shadows stretch too far without your forgiveness. Their guilt has no echo to hide behind. This is what the great accounting looks like. Every debt settled, every lie dismantled, not through noise but through inevitability. And to those who played God over your life, the sky didn't fall. You did. Number 3. The trap they set became their own stage. They constructed it with precision, each piece of gossip, each passive-aggressive post, each false concern layered like stage props. But they never realized the irony they were scripting. They thought they were setting a trap for you, carefully orchestrated, like a public humiliation. But now, they're the ones standing exposed in their own performance. The lights they aimed at your shame are now illuminating their deceit, and every eye is watching. Have you noticed how silence suddenly surrounds those who once spoke so confidently against you? Why their names are now followed by awkward glances instead of applause? They built a platform on your pain, and now that platform is cracking beneath their feet. This isn't just poetic justice. It's surgical precision from the divine. What they meant to destroy you has become the soundtrack of your rise. Every whisper they dropped into dark corners is now echoing in truth's cathedral. Psalm 57:6 says, "They dug a pit in my path, but they have fallen into it themselves. They wrote you off, cast you out, labeled you unstable, emotional, too much." But their calculations didn't factor in the one variable they could never control, the resilience of the chosen. You didn't claw your way to this moment. You didn't manipulate or chase attention. You simply refused to collapse. That's the real twist. You survived without retaliation. You healed without bitterness. You elevated without explanation. And now, you walk in a truth so undeniable. It makes their entire narrative melt under its weight. Corrie ten Boom, Dutch Christian and Holocaust survivor, once said, "There is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still. They threw you in that pit believing it would be your end, but it became your chrysalis. What they thought was a burial was really a rebirth. You are not rising because they fell. You're rising because your foundation was built in silence, in secret, in suffering. And when truth rises, it doesn't need to shout." Have you seen how their power begins to flicker when you enter a room now? Why their stories no longer land the same way they used to? There's a woman named Jinnah, a marketing strategist from Seoul. Her co-workers mocked her faith, stole her campaign ideas, and excluded her from key meetings. But she kept building quietly, kept showing up in excellence. A year later, a major client traced the success of their brand back to her work and demanded she lead the global campaign. The very team that silenced her now submits proposals under her leadership. They wanted to control the stage, but the audience shifted. In the book of Daniel, we see a moment just like this. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the fiery furnace, not because they failed, but because they refused to bow. Their enemies thought fire would finish them. But Daniel 3:25 says, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." What was meant to destroy them became the backdrop for a divine appearance. That's what's happening with you. You're not just walking out of the fire, you're walking with presence. And that presence exposes every lie, every illusion, every manipulation. Have you ever wondered why they're the ones losing stability while you're just getting started? Why their machines of control are suddenly glitching like fragile tech under a truthquake? Because energy never lies, and the lie can only hold weight for so long before gravity reclaims it. Look at the sun cutting through dense fog at dawn. It doesn't argue, doesn't plead. It simply arrives, and the fog has no choice but to fade. You are that sun now, not loud, but final. Let's not pretend this unraveling is accidental. This is divine alignment finesse in motion. The universe gave them room to perform, to bask in their illusions, to spin their webs. But when the time was right, the light snapped on, exposing every mask for what it really was. The grand spectacle of their deceit is now collapsing in real time. And the audience, your allies, the watchers, even the neutral see the truth crystal clear. Why do some systems built on manipulation crumble so quickly when truth arrives? How is it that the very foundation of control they so desperately constructed is now their prison? Because no one can outsmart the divine blueprint. It's not a game of wit, it's a law of existence. They tried to play the chessboard, but you were moving in rhythm with the cosmic dance. Their desperation sent them in circles, endless talking, plotting, scrambling. Your silence wasn't absence, it was power stored. It was a calm before the storm. And now, that silence is screaming louder than their accusations ever did. For those still wrestling with doubt, wondering if you're truly chosen, or if this is all coincidence, hear this clearly. No one devotes that much energy to destroying someone who isn't a threat. If you weren't dangerous, they wouldn't have tried so hard to dim your light. The moment you showed up carrying truth, they panicked. Their fear is your confirmation. The irony cuts deep, doesn't it? They thought they could rewrite your story, but the universe had already authored it in indelible ink. Their scripts are dissolving, and yours are blazing bright. It's a cosmic courtroom where you aren't on trial. You're the judge. Martin Luther King Jr., a titan of truth and justice, once proclaimed, The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. The bend is happening now. The stage they built to shame you, it's their cage. The spotlight once meant to blind you, now reveals their true faces. Look at Anya, a journalist from Moscow who faced smear campaigns from powerful figures threatened by her investigations. She was isolated, threatened, and dismissed. Yet she persisted, publishing one exposé after another. Now, those same figures are under official inquiry. She didn't fight with fists. She fought with truth, and the world is watching her triumph. In 2 Corinthians 12-9, Paul writes, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Your weakness, their target, has been your hidden strength. The pressure they applied was the pressure that forged your unbreakable spirit. Natural forces teach the same truth. Imagine a river carving its way through solid rock not by force, but by persistence over time. It doesn't shout or rage. It simply flows until the rock gives way. You are that river, steady, persistent, shaping your destiny. Have you noticed how their narratives falter the moment you speak your truth? Why their facades crumble when faced with your unshakable presence? Because you are no longer a background player in their drama. You are the director rewriting the scene. You are not their victim. You are their reminder. And the universe's work is far from over. The twist is still turning. The spotlight still shifting. And with every attempt to silence you, your voice grows louder, not through shouting, but through the undeniable power of truth. This is divine irony, striking exactly where it's meant to. Number 4. The fire of truth doesn't knock. It consumes. Lies may glitter for a moment, but they never endure the storm. Their fragile beauty shatters the instant reality, turns up the heat. And that moment, the moment when all carefully constructed illusions begin to unravel, is here. The fire of truth doesn't politely knock. It consumes everything in its path, relentlessly, without pause. Have you noticed how falsehoods, no matter how convincingly crafted, start to crack under pressure? Why do some people's smiles suddenly falter when questions get too close? This is no accident. This is exposure. The house of cards they built on deception is collapsing, and every shaky piece falls heavier on those who built it. They spent so much time constructing narratives with trembling hands, pretending to be protectors, voices of reason, calming the storm. But in reality, they were the architects of chaos, villains draped in the robes of saints, spinning tales to confuse and control. They counted on your silence, thought you were powerless because you didn't shout. But silence isn't surrender. It's a loaded weapon. And now, that weapon has been drawn. The truth no longer needs to be proclaimed. It simply exists, undeniable and clear as sunlight piercing the darkest shadow. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 26-20, "Without wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down." Their fire of lies now lacks fuel. Their gossip cannot sustain the collapse they face. There's an irony here. They believed their own lies. So often they repeated them, so confidently. They forgot these were fabrications. They rehearsed the roles of heroes, wearing masks until the sweat of truth revealed every crack. Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate, once said, "The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference." Their indifference to truth and their love for control blinded them to the fire that was coming. That fire is not destruction, it is purification, burning away deceit and falsehoods until only what is real remains. Consider Amara, a dedicated nurse from Nairobi, whose colleagues whispered behind her back, claiming she was too emotional, too fragile for the pressures of the job. Yet in the midst of a crisis, Amara's calm leadership saved countless lives. Her detractors' lies melted away in the heat of her undeniable strength. She didn't fight them, she simply stayed true. And now, her name is synonymous with resilience in the story of Jeremiah. Known as the weeping prophet, we see a man burdened with harsh truths, though mocked and persecuted. Jeremiah vinci, novi declaris. But if I say, I will not mention his word or speak any more in his name. His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. Truth burns inside the chosen, impossible to contain, impossible to ignore. Nature offers a vivid parallel. A wildfire sweeping across dry terrain doesn't pause to ask permission. It roars with hunger and leaves no falsehood unturned. You are that wildfire now. Your truth is consuming every fabricated narrative that once sought to define you. Have you noticed how the collective is starting to awaken? Why do lies collapse as more eyes open to the reality you carry? Because fire reveals, purifies, and transforms. And when it burns, nothing can stop it. Their favorite weapon was distraction, point fingers, cast blame, make the light seem dangerous so they could lurk in the shadows undisturbed. But truth is relentless. It cuts through noise with surgical precision, revelation by revelation, expose by expose, lie by leet crumbles. Have you noticed how lies never fall with a bang, but with quiet devastation? Why does the mask slip slowly, but surely? Because truth works molecule by molecule, unraveling narratives until the crowd they once convinced starts asking questions, remembering, noticing, awakening. And when people begin to notice, the game is over. To you, the chosen one, never doubt the power of your truth. You didn't need to fight. You didn't need to shout. The energy always catches up. Lies might fly for a while, but truth moves with inevitability. Ecclesiastes 3:17 reminds us, God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. No, you were never crazy. You were never the villain. You were the mirror that reflected their own rot. The universe is meticulous. It doesn't forget. It doesn't overlook what was done to you. And that's why the collapse you see around you is no accident. It's consequence, natural law, divine justice. Still feeling doubt? Wondering if they're still winning? Look closely. If they truly held power, would they panic, scramble to rewrite history, delete evidence, silence voices? No. That's not strength, that's collapse in motion. Frederick Douglass, former slave and influential abolitionist, said, "Truth is powerful, and it prevails. Their noise, their bluster, was never strength. It was volume without substance. And now even their volume cannot save them. Truth arrives like sunlight burning through morning fog, compromising, brutal, honest. It sears falsehoods until they vanish, leaving only what is real behind. Imagine a forest fire that burns away the deadwood, clearing the path for new growth. That's what this is. Every structure built on deceit deserves this cleansing fire. When the smoke clears, only the truth will stand. Only you will remain. Number 5. They built a throne on lies. Now it's crumbling beneath them, piece by glorious piece. You can build a castle with stolen bricks and hollow promises, but don't be surprised when the walls cave in. There's a sound that precedes every collapse. It starts subtle, a shift in the atmosphere, a pressure beneath the surface. Then, the creak, the snap, the groan of what once seemed unshakable, now bending under the weight of truth. Have you ever felt that subtle change before a storm? Not the roar, but the quiet stillness that signals what's coming. That's what's happening now. What you hear isn't chaos, it's justice in motion. Their confidence was their blindfold. They mistook their lies for foundation, their control for permanence. But Psalm 11:3 warns, when the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? The ground beneath their throne is hollow. Their empire built on rot is doomed. The collapse isn't just structural, it's spiritual bankruptcy. The bill came due. The weight of all the lies, the cover-ups, the twisted narratives, they're falling like bricks in a storm. The arrogance that once made them feel invincible now becomes the sound of their own downfall. You saw this coming before anyone else did. You felt it in the way they moved, too calculated, too forced. You sensed the falseness in their smiles, the tension behind their loyalty. You warned others, tried to explain, but they labeled you too intense, too sensitive, too negative. Have you wondered why the truth was so hard for others to see? Why your warning sounded like alarm bells no one wanted to hear? Now, even their staunchest defenders are retreating. Those who once swore allegiance are fading into silence. No one wants to stand beside a crumbling tower, covered in dust and debris of exposed deception. One by one, they distance themselves. One by one, they pretend ignorance. But you knew. You always knew. You watched them play puppet master, building kingdoms of illusion on fake smile, one forced alliance at a time. They called it leadership, claimed it was protection, but beneath it all was control, ego, fear. Fear of what would happen if the truth ever took root. The truth has not only taken root, it has blossomed into a reckoning. And the walls, they're coming down fast. You might ask, why didn't anyone believe me? Why did I have to bear the burden alone while they thrived in lies? The answer is the same now as it was then, because truth is often the hardest thing to accept. But your suffering wasn't in vain. It was the soil for your victory. Queen Esther, whose courage saved a nation, once faced similar disbelief. Yet Esther 4:14 reminds us, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. You were placed perfectly, even when it felt isolated and unfair. Brené Brown, researcher and storyteller, has said, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity and change. Your vulnerability was never weakness. It was the genesis of transformation. The crumbling throne is evidence that change is underway. There's a woman named Layla, an activist in Cairo who faced exile for speaking against corruption. She was dismissed, threatened, and ignored. But as the system that oppressed her began to crack, her voice grew louder and inspired a movement. The throne built on lies was falling, and she was the spark. Like roots breaking through concrete, truth cannot be contained. It forces its way into the light, reshaping the landscape, because that's how it always begins. The truth doesn't shout at first. It waits in silence, watching, growing beneath the surface like roots underground. But when it blooms, it becomes undeniable. Those who doubted you now sit in stunned silence. Witnessing the avalanche you warned them about, slow, inevitable, and unstoppable. To you, the chosen one. This moment is not just a spectacle, it's a confirmation, a validation of every tear. Every night you bore pain alone. The silence that once concealed your suffering now screams your survival to the world. This is not petty revenge, it's realignment. The cosmos restoring balance after years of deception and borrowed power. They were certain their secrets were safe, their alliances unbreakable, their control absolute. But nothing built on falsehood withstands the universe's reckoning. The collapse you witness is multi-dimensional, physical, reputational, spiritual, energetic. It's a fall that leaves no easy recovery, a fall that drags legacies down with it, and it forces even the closest allies to distance themselves, pretending ignorance. Abandoning ship, watch carefully as they scatter, backpedal, delete evidence, deny everything, and dissolve their once loyal support. For loyalty born of lies is no loyalty at all. It is fear, convenience, and self-interest. Once the illusion is stripped away, so too vanishes their allegiance. Breathe. Let this reality settle deep within you. Witness the justice unfolding, the truth, tired of being ignored, refuses to be silenced any longer. The chosen no longer apologize for being inconvenient or difficult. They were silenced, erased, painted as villains, but now the script has reversed itself. The ending they feared is here. No more hiding, no more pretending. The weight of their deception has finally crushed their fantasy. All that remains is the wreckage and you rising, stronger, clearer, and victorious. Job, a biblical figure known for his endurance through suffering, reminds us in Job 42:10, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Your restoration will be beyond measure because you stood when they expected you to fall. Maya Angelou, the legendary poet and activist, once said, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated." Your story echoes that truth. Defeat was never your destiny. Consider Khalil, a community leader in Amman, Jordan, ostracized for exposing corruption. The silence around him was deafening, yet his unwavering commitment to truth inspired a wave of change, bringing down the very structures that sought to silence him. Like the oak tree weathering a storm, your roots grow stronger beneath the surface. Storms come and go, but your foundation holds firm. Number 6. When the pieces connect, the mask shatters and the pattern exposes everything. A single lie can stand firm for a moment, but stack enough of them together and they crumble under their own weight. At first, the cracks were subtly whispered doubt, a sidelong glance, a hesitant pause when your name was mentioned. Most weren't ready to believe you. They were mesmerized by the charm, the illusion, the carefully crafted facade. They clung to convenience, to what made their world comfortable. Have you noticed how slowly the fog begins to lift? How what once seemed like random discord now reveals a pattern so clear it's impossible to ignore. The emerging truth is not a mere crack, it's the entire structure exposed. Deception is clever when fresh polished, controlled, rehearsed. But time reveals rot beneath the veneer. The stench grows, unbearable and undeniable. Those who once defended the lies now glance around with widened eyes, asking, "How did I miss this?" The puzzle pieces are falling into place. What appeared as petty conflicts and isolated incidents was actually a calculated campaign of destruction. Not accident, Naught misunderstanding, but rehearsed sabotage. Coordinated smear tactics, and it always circled back to you. They weren't just reacting, they were architects of your undoing. Every conversation, every narrative, every hushed whisper was a seed planted, a trap set, a perception shaped. And while you sought to understand the unease, they doubled down on deception, expending more energy building alibis than living honestly. Their lies weren't casual, they were engineered. Their attacks weren't spontaneous, they were strategic. Rehearsed performances behind closed doors. Timed lines, perfected for maximum damage. Your life became their stage. And they were the actors playing roles designed to destroy your reputation. But now, the script is unraveling in their hands. Those confident lines are turning on them as evidence mounts. Memories resurface. Inconsistencias appear. The narrative once spun with control is now slipping through their fingers. Nehemiah, tasked with rebuilding Jerusalem's walls, faced coordinated opposition that was strategic and persistent. Yet Nehemiah 4:17, -18 records. Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon with the other. The builders were armed. Like Nehemiah, you have been armed, your resilience and truth protecting you amid the siege. Johann Christoph Arnold, a peace advocate and author, once observed, "Truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend itself." That's what's happening now. The truth you carry is defending you as lies collapse around you. Consider Ravi, a tech entrepreneur in Bangalore, whose competitors conspired to sabotage his projects with false accusations and misinformation campaigns. While he focused on innovation, they spent their energy on deceit. Eventually, clients saw through the smokescreen, and Ravi's business flourished while his opponents faltered. In nature, the spider's web is a masterpiece of design, strong and intricate, but when one thread breaks, the entire web can unravel. The same applies here. The network of lies woven around you is fragile and breaking with every revealed truth. Have you noticed how the smallest truth can collapse an entire narrative? How one exposed lie sends shockwaves through a fortress of deception. The mask they wore is shattering, and the pattern of their intent is now clear for all to see. One voice rises, then another still. What was once dismissed as your isolated struggle is now revealed as a sweeping pattern, a map of malice, a blueprint of betrayal. They failed to see the truth has its own rhythm. It doesn't rush. It waits for the perfect moment. You didn't have to force it. You simply outlasted the lies. You made it through the fog of confusion, the isolation of silence, the gaslighting that tried to drown your certainty, and the guilt that wasn't yours to carry. And now the light floods every crack they patched over with false smiles and rehearsed stories. All their efforts to control the narrative spinning damage control, calling in favors, manipulating silence, have crumbled. The hidden conversations, the coordinated scripts behind closed doors, the rehearsed lines, they are useless now. As more compare notes, the illusion bursts. Confusion turns to curiosity, which becomes clarity. The pattern emerges. Undeniable. It was never an accident or a misunderstanding. It was habitual, deliberate, a cycle everyone now sees. The pattern always points to the same architects of deceit, to you, the chosen one. Breathe this in. This is the shift. The vindication that doesn't need loud proclamations, because reality speaks loudest of all. You no longer have to prove anything. The pattern itself is your proof. Their unraveling is their confession. Their silence is guilt, at last catching up. You were never paranoid. You were never too much. You were never imagining it. You were the target of a machine engineered to break you. But you survived. And that machine, it's rusting in plain sight. Leaking. Collapsing under its own weight. Witnessed by those they fooled. Let it rise. Let every lie surface and fall away. Truth has become magnetic. Every false story is pulled apart, piece by piece. This is what happens when darkness runs out of places to hide. The pattern isn't just visible, it's deafening, and those who swore allegiance to liars are retreating, realizing too late that standing beside deception means being mistaken for it. The story is no longer theirs to tell. It belongs to you now, and at last, it is heard. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, there is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. Your season of revelation is here. Audre Lorde, poet and activist, said, "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. Their tools leads manipulation, control breaking, because the truth you wield is unstoppable." There's a man named Tariq, a whistleblower in Dubai, who risked everything to expose corporate corruption, isolated and vilified. He endured relentless attacks, yet the truth he carried could not be buried. Today, reforms have been initiated, and Tariq stands as a beacon of courage, like the phoenix rising from ashes. Your truth is reborn. You are no longer in the shadows. You are the light illuminating the path forward. Number 7. The spotlight burns now, and the curtain's been ripped clean off. Ali dazzle like bright stage lights, blinding, captivating, full of smoke and mirrors. But when the curtain falls, what remains is the chaos behind the scenes, tangled wires, broken props, and empty promises. This moment of reckoning is unfolding right now. The masks are cracking. The show cannot go on. The crowd is finally seeing the strings pulling the illusion apart. Have you noticed how what once seemed invincible now trembles under the weight of truth? Why do the rehearsed denials now sound hollow, and the cries of innocence seem forced? The foundation they built to last forever is buckling, and no performance can hold it together. Years of careful rehearsals, every denial timed, every emotional outburst choreographed, every sob story crafted to pierce sympathy without accountability, have only delayed the inevitable. They played the misunderstood, the victim, the innocent with such skill that many believed the act, but truth never plays a role. Truth pierces. It rips away costumes, kicks down stages, and turns on the house lights. What you are witnessing is the final act, not a drama, but a collapse. The scaffolding of deceit, the fake stories, strategic alliances, emotional manipulation, siege. Support beam is cracking. The tremors of revelation have shaken their entire stage. Nothing remains secure. When reality catches up, the spotlight shifts from admiration to interrogation. The loud denials now falter. The voices that once screamed innocence stammer. Eyes that shed tears on cue dart nervously, searching for escape. The audience stops applauding. They begin questioning. The spell is breaking. The public is awakening. Once the trick behind the illusion is revealed, it cannot be unseen. The emotional bait used to manipulate is no longer effective. The audience has stepped behind the curtain, and what they see is a con, a scam, a fabricated production. They relied on emotional shortcuts, believing that sincerity, tears, or volume could override logic and evidence, but emotion without truth is mere performance. And now, no one is buying tickets. The stage is emptying. The crowd is walking away. What remains is the raw, ugly mechanism of deception laid bare. 1 Corinthians 14:33 reminds us. God is not a God of disorder, but of peace. Their chaos is dissolving under divine order. The house of lies cannot stand in the light of truth. Malala Yousafzai, advocate for education and human rights, once said, "When the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. The silence of truth is now a roar, exposing every falsehood." Consider Elias, a whistleblower from Santiago, who exposed a corporate cover-up despite threats and isolation. His voice shattered the facade, forcing transparency. His courage turned the tide, and the deceit crumbled. In nature, the sunlight cutting through dense fog reveals what was hidden. It does not ask permission or wait for consent. It simply arrives, and the mist dissolves. Have you noticed how the spotlight now exposes what was once hidden? Why does falsehood tremble when confronted with unwavering truth? This is your moment. The breaking of the illusion, the rise of undeniable reality. To you, the chosen one, this is what you've been waiting for. The moment your silence was preparing you for the time when truth builds its case not with noise, but with fire. You never needed to scream. You never had to force the unveiling. The truth now moves in your place, revealing what you could not, erasing illusions with relentless flame. Their kingdom of lies had a fatal flaw. It depended on everyone else remaining asleep. But the eyes have opened. Questions are rippling through the crowd. Energy is shifting. This is exposure in its purest form, not merely being caught in the act, but being laid bare in intention and motive. When intention is revealed, there is no turning back. This is the reckoning, the burn that does not fade. The moment the narrative flips from "maybe it was a mistake" to "they knew exactly what they were doing," you were doubted, discredited, dragged through mud while they basked in the spotlight you were supposed to shrink beneath. But now, that spotlight sears them, revealing every false smile, every forced tear, every grasp at hollow virtue. The shields they once held are melting away, and the fallout, it's glorious. There is nowhere to run, no words to twist, no guilt to weaponize. The collective vision of truth is locked in, and the reckoning is unstoppable. Reputations crumble, support evaporates. All that remains is exposure standing, powerless under the very lights they once controlled. This is the moment the curtain falls. The truth takes center stage, raw and unmasked. No script, no costume, just undeniable reality, and the collapse of lies, too arrogant to consider consequences. The reckoning is here, and you, the chosen, were never the villain. You were the mirror, a reflection they could not bear. Now, the whole world sees what you saw all along. Psalm 34:18 comforts us. The Lord is close to the broken-hearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Your spirit, crushed but unbroken, now shines through the ruins. Nelson Mandela, a symbol of resilience and justice, said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Your rise is that glory, unshakable and true." Consider Amira, a human rights defender in Istanbul, whose voice was silenced and vilified, yet with patience and courage, the truth she championed pierced through layers of deceit. inspiring change and awakening many. Nature reflects this too. Sunlight bursts through a storm's retreating clouds, illuminating everything it once hid without apology, without hesitation. Have you noticed how light reveals what shadows tried to keep hidden? Why does the world begin to see what you already knew? This is your time, the rise from shadow into undeniable light. Number 8. They tried to erase your spirit, but the universe doesn't delete what it designed. They didn't just try to silence you, they aimed to erase you completely, to rewrite history as if you never existed, reduce you to a mere whisper in a story where you were once the backbone, the pulse, the truth itself. Their plan was to make you a footnote, something small, forgettable, easily ignored. But truth refuses to shrink. Your energy was never meant to be confined to the margins. You were, and always will be, the chapter, the heart beating through the entire narrative. Why does truth always find a way to rise, no matter how deep they try to bury it? How can something as intangible as energy be so undeniably persistent? Because truth carries memory, and reality grows roots that cannot be severed. Every attempt to bury your impact only makes it grow louder, stronger, more undeniable with each passing day. Their version of the past, the carefully crafted script they've sold to the world, is collapsing. Facts no longer align. Timelines contradict. Their narrative cannot withstand the pressure of lived experience and collective memory. As people die deeper, the facade crumbles, exposing layers of consistent deception. They lied not occasionally, not by accident, but with relentless consistency. Lies meant to erase you, protect their fragile images, and soothe their own fears. Lies they told themselves as much as the world, believing they could overwrite spiritual truth with ego and cowardice. But what most miss is the deeper reality beneath this social fallout. This isn't merely a story of exposure or emotional fallout. This is a spiritual reckoning. No external punishment, no sudden divine wrath striking from above. It's balancia, cosmic physics that operates on the soul's frequency. Energy does not vanish, it recycles and rebalances. Every act out of alignment with truth incurs a cost. Every manipulation fueled by fear, every decision rooted in greed, every smear meant to silence your light because it unsettled their comfort. All these energies accumulate silently but relentlessly. And now, that weight demands release. Galatians 6-7 warns, "Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." The spiritual laws that govern existence are as real as gravity, inescapable and impartial. C.S. Lewis, writer and theologian, once wrote, "Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." Your unwavering truth, held in silence, holds more power than they ever imagined. Think of Nia, an artist from Johannesburg whose creative voice was suppressed by gatekeepers, fearful of her influence. Despite efforts to erase her contributions, her work surfaced in galleries worldwide, inspiring a new generation. Her spirit, though targeted for oblivion, rebounded with unstoppable force. Nature teaches the same truth. Rivers, even when dammed or diverted, carve new paths, breaking barriers, reaching the ocean relentlessly. Your spirit is like water, unyielding, persistent, destined to find its way. This is karmic gravity. No one escapes it, not by status, not by charm, not by lies well spun to fool a crowd. Spiritual truth doesn't seek applause to exist. It simply is, and when the timing aligns, ils surface, indifferent to their stories, unmoved by their denials. Their spiritual bankruptcy rings loud in their desperate reactions, defensive, paranoid, fronty. This is not regret. It's imbalance catching up, a soul out of integrity. Lost and unsure how to return, they traded alignment for control, peace for performance. The universe allowed this for a time, but time is not immunity. You weren't discarded for weakness. You were targeted because your presence shattered their illusion. You carried something unreplicable: spiritual clarity, inner alignment, authentic resonance. That kind of power unsettles those who dwell in darkness. They tried to dim your light because they could never match it. Now the karmic tide has turned. Their manipulations cost them peace. Their evasions corrode credibility. The very energy they spent trying to erase you returns, multiplied. This is no revenge, no cruelty. It's the quiet law of balance, restoring what was distorted. The universe needs no ragingly time. When time runs out, truth reigns. To the chosen, justice isn't something you seek, you embody it. Your survival is the imbalance correcting itself. Your clarity dismantles their fog. Your truth, once ignored, is the force shaking the foundations of their lies. What you feel is more than validation, it's restoration. The spiritual accounting has begun. Every soul measured not by words, but energy, not by image, but intention. That is the realm where truth dwells. Let it unfold. Let the imbalance correct. You don't have to lift a finger. You were the storm all along. They mistook silence for surrender. Now their fiction fades, and your light writes itself into the story they tried to erase forever. Romans 12:19 says, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." The universe executes justice with perfect timing. Mother Teresa, a beacon of compassion, once said, "Peace begins with a smile." Your peace is the calm after the storm, the stillness that unsettles falsehood. Jamal, a teacher in Lagos who faced relentless opposition for advocating equality, his spirit was targeted but never extinguished. Today, his influence reshapes education and challenges old systems. Natural forces echo this truth. The ocean's tide doesn't rush or hesitate, it moves in rhythms beyond human control, shaping coastlines over time. Your spirit moves like the tide, inevitable and unstoppable. Number 9. The final shift has begun, not in silence, but in undeniable force. They mocked what they could not see, laughed at the idea that spiritual consequence might reach them, and carried themselves as if untouchable, invincible in their arrogance. But now the masks have fallen, the lies have been stripped away. The fake power they desperately clung to lies in tatters around them. The very forces they denied, ignored, and scorned are closing in. They hold up a mirror they cannot escape, reflection they refuse to face. Every ounce of energy they cast out into the world, every manipulation, every deceit, has returned, multiplied, and this time, it demands accountability. This shift is not just a change of who holds the microphone or commands attention. This is the collapse of a corrupt system, a fundamental rewriting of what power truly means. The old order is breaking, and something new, more authentic, is emerging. You were never dependent on their approval. You never needed their recognition to be chosen, and that was the truth they failed to grasp. Their efforts to destroy you only amplified your purpose. Their hatred only illuminated your light. They went to war believing they were fighting you. But what they truly confronted was the unstoppable current of the universe, an energy far greater than flesh and blood. And now, they are drowning in that current. This final shift is no longer a warning. It has arrived, and you remain standing stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. They tried to erase you, but in doing so, they revealed the very reason the universe chose you in the first place. Isaiah 54:17 proclaims, "No weapon forged against you will prevail." The weapons forged in darkness are powerless before the divine. Malcolm X, a fierce advocate for justice, declared, "The future belongs to those who prepare for it today." You have prepared now. The future is yours. Consider Layla, an activist from Beirut, who faced constant threats and attempts to silence her voice. Yet her persistence galvanized a movement that shook corrupt foundations and inspired a generation to rise. In nature, the tide does not ask permission to change the shore. It moves with certainty, reshaping what once seemed permanent. Your presence is that tide, inevitable and transformative. Have you felt the shift beneath your feet? Have you noticed how the old walls tremble before the new dawn? This is your moment. The universe's declaration that the final shift is here, and you are its herald. From the very beginning, they dug deep graves, hoping to bury you in silence and confusion. But the universe never loses sight of those it chooses. Their war was never just against you, but the force behind Yuan, unstoppable power forged by storms. The great accounting has now come due, and every lie, every plot, every whispered betrayal is logged and exposed. The trap they set for you has become their own stage of public unraveling, where the false actors stumble and fall. The fire of truth burns without warning, melting away the masks and false performances they relied on. Disintegrate quietly but devastatingly, revealing a wildfire of reality that no fabrication can withstand. Their throne of lies crumbles under the weight of truth, with former allies retreating and the foundations of their empire collapsing. When the pieces connect, the mask shatters, and the pattern exposes their calculated campaign of destruction aimed solely at you. Voices rise, one by one, breaking the illusion and revealing a coordinated machine of betrayal. The spotlight now burns with a harsh light, ripping off curtains and exposing the raw mechanisms of deceit they relied on. The curtain falls, and the truth takes center stage, unmasked and undeniable, turning you from the villain to the mirror, reflecting their own rot. Attempts to erase your spirit failed, because the universe's design cannot be deleted. Your truth is the pulse of the story. Karmic gravity pulls back every energy they sent, forcing reckoning without rage, only balance restored. Their spiritual bankruptcy echoes in desperate defense, while you embody justice itself, the storm they mistook for silence. The final shift is here, not a warning, but an unstoppable force. They drown in the cosmic current they tried to fight, revealing why the universe chose you, as you stand stronger and wiser than ever. As we come to the end of this powerful journey together, take a moment to breathe in the truth that has been laid bare. Being chosen is never about ease or comfort. It is a sacred calling, a divine assignment that demands strength beyond measure, clarity in the midst of chaos, and unwavering faith when the world tries to shake you. Every challenge you faced, every moment you felt unseen or misunderstood, Every silent tear shed in solitude, it was all preparing you for this moment of awakening. The universe has never forgotten you. It has been quietly weaving your victory into the fabric of time. And now that victory is breaking through like the dawn after the darkest night. You were never alone in this battle. The forces against you underestimated the power within you, the power that no darkness can extinguish, no lie can erase. Your spirit, forged in fire and refined by storms, shines brighter than ever. Your rise is not just inevitable, it is a testament to the unyielding strength that flows from the divine source that marked you from the beginning. If these words stirred something deep within your soul, I ask you to stand with us by liking this video and sharing it with those who need this message, those who are still walking through their own battles in silence, those who need to remember who they truly are. Your simple act of engagement is a light in the darkness, a signal to other chosen ones that they are not alone and that a collective awakening is happening right now. Drop a comment below to share your story, or simply write 777 if you feel the power of this truth resonate with you. Your voice matters here. It strengthens the community. It empowers others. And it helps spread this message far and wide. Make sure you subscribe and tap the notification bell to stay connected, because this journey of revelation and transformation is just beginning. And together, we will rise higher than ever before. To every soul who has supported this channel, whether through super thanks or through quiet presence, thank you from the depths of my heart. Your generosity, your faith, and your courage fuel this mission. You are the lifeblood of this movement, and your commitment is a testament to the power of unity among the chosen. May your spirit remain unbreakable, your truth be an unshakable force, and your path be bathed in the radiant light of divine purpose. May every shadow that once threatened to dim you be swept away by the unstoppable dawn rising within you. Keep standing tall. Keep shining your light. And know this, you are deeply loved, eternally protected, and infinitely blessed. Together, we are not just surviving, we are triumphing. Together, we are not just rising, we are soaring. And together, we are rewriting the story of what it means to be truly chosen.